Bernice Nipper, the youngest one of this family. Here we have 7 brothers and sisters that we're going to interview today. Are you starting there on the right with Bernice?
Yes.
Okay. That's Aunt Bernice there on the end who lives in Shawnee, and she's 90 years old or 90 years young today. And that's why we're here. And next to her is Aunt Annie Nipper, who lives also here in Shawnee. And next to her, I won't give any more ages because I'm not sure what they are, is Aunt Georgie Sykes, who lives here also in Shawnee. And then my mother, Ruby Hames, who lives in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I happen to know her age is 78, so I can say that one. And Charlie Martin is next, who, I don't know his age, but he lives in Tulsa also. And next we come to the out-of-state members of the family. Dalmas Martin, who lives in Salina, Kansas. And then Grace White, who comes from Dirks, Arkansas. And we wanted to spend just a little time today reminiscing, if you will, to find out about what happened when you were young, or tell us about who your folks were and where they came from, or anything that you'd like to tell us about what you can remember about the early days and your early life. Grace, do you have anything you'd like to tell us?
They can tell more about all of that than I can.
You want to pass on the mic to the next one? Okay. Okay.
Pass it on.
Well, our grandfather, Isaac Martin, originated in Tennessee way back in 1700s.
1821.
1821, was it? Well, anyway, and he was married there and had, I think, 5 children, and he moved to Missouri and had four more children there. He married again, and he's buried there. But they don't know his where he came from, other than Tennessee. They don't know anything more about his background than that. And he's
And then
buried there.
where did your father come along?
Missouri, Greenfield, Missouri. Father and mother both came from Greenfield, Missouri.
I see. Is that where you were born?
No, I was born in Prague, Oklahoma.
In Prague, Oklahoma.
Yeah.
That's right. It's a good town. That's where I was born.
Yeah.
Charlie, you got anything more you'd like to tell us about the family?
Well, I think he's told pretty well about the family history as far as Isaac Martin, our grandfather. We never did see any of our grandparents.
Yeah, never did.
My father was towards the youngest of his family, and my mother was the baby of her family. We never did see any of our grandparents.
Hardly any of our aunts and uncles.
Is it?
Very few.
And of course, they left there and went to Colorado, and I was born in Colorado, then came to Oklahoma in 1908. I was very small.
I can't even remember my daddy.
I've been in Oklahoma ever since 1908. I tell him I'm going on 90, but I'm quite a ways off yet.
Well, I was the sixth child of our family, and my mother had 10 children. And her sisters, she had 3 or 4 sisters that didn't have any children. One of them had one boy, and they all tried to get her to give her a child, and she'd say, "I don't have any for sale."
She had to have them for everybody.
Yeah, she didn't have any for sale. And she had 2 brothers. They didn't have any children either. Mother had nearly all of them.
I didn't know that.
Well, they didn't.
You all are learning things about your family, aren't you?
Yeah. Well, I don't know much more.
I don't know much either. I just know that I was about 4 years old when we went to Colorado. And we stayed there 2 years. I went to school my first term there. And I was 8 years old when we come to Oklahoma. And we came here in the fall. We picked cotton, black-eyed peas, and everything. And we lived in a tent out on a farm that fall. And then the next year, we moved into a house on a big Indian lease. And we lived there for quite a while. And then we moved between there and Prague on Miss Sutherland's place, and that's when our daddy passed away. He went to Missouri on a trip and passed away up there, and we never seen him anymore.
What happened?
They buried him up there. He had pneumonia, kidney trouble and pneumonia.
Whereabouts in Missouri did you bury?
Greenfield, and we have a brother buried there, and then after we came here, we had another brother that died, and he's buried out here at Garden Grove between here and Prague. He was younger than me. I guess I don't know, he's younger than you, wasn't he?
Between us.
Yeah. So that's about all I know.
Well, I think she's told it all.
Can you think of anything else to tell, Annie?
I don't think I can. Let's see, we come from Colorado here, and she was born in Texas.
Were you born in Texas, or where were you
Yes,
born?
I was born in
Good place
Texas.
to be born. Where?
What was that place?
Nocona?
Yeah, I believe it was.
Isn't that where those two sisters live?
Well, that's where they make all the boots, the cowboy boots now. Made in
Is it?
No,
Well, I guess I was 3 years older than you. How old did you say you was?
yeah.
Me?
Those old men.
I'll be 81 next Thursday.
Well, I mean, when we come here.
I was 8.
I guess I was about 11 then.
Yeah.
I see. How old are you now?
I'll be 84 next month.
84. Great. Well, here's our birthday girl, Aunt Bernice. Is there anything about your folks that you might like to tell us, or anything about your early days?
Think about what?
Would you like to tell us anything about your early days or your parents?
Oh, I don't think so. I don't believe I can.
Well, we're glad you had a birthday today so we could all get together.
I am too.
And after we have lunch, we're going to be coming back in here by families and interview each family. And so this is going to be on a tape so that Melvin can play it back for anybody on television. That'll be fun. At this time, we're going to talk to each brother and sister to find out who it was they married and when, and who their children were, the names of their children. Aunt Bernice, you married Robert Nipper, right?
Uh-huh.
And about what year was that? 1911?
Oh,
About 1911?
I don't believe that's it.
Well, it was about that time, I
She was
think.
21, you can count back.
Right, okay. And what, you had 2 children, right? What are their names?
Who?
The names of your children?
Oh, Harold and Zeta.
Harold and Zeta, okay. Next we'll go to Aunt Annie, and you tell us who you married and when and the names of your children.
Yeah, I'm Annie Nipper, and I married Lawrence Nipper. And the kid's name is Doyle, Carl, and James.
And the interesting thing about it was that these 2 sisters married 2 brothers. Now that made a bunch of double cousins, I think. Now we're going to talk to Aunt Georgie.
Well, we married September the 26th in
Who
1918,
did you marry?
Charlie Sykes, and we had 5 children. Jewel, Clifford, Charles Eldon, Frida, and Geraldine.
Okay. I think I know this.
I married Leslie Hames in November 29th, 1923. I had 2 children, one daughter and one son. LH and Evilly and LH.
Okay.
I ought to practice a little bit.
I married in 1937 to Carrie McBride. We had 2 sons. One, the oldest son is Charles, and the other's Melvin. That's the only children we had.
You want to tell about your second marriage?
Well, I lost my wife, and I was single for a while, and I married again to Irene Gwynn. She had 3 children, Ron and Mary and Bill. We all get along swell. Had a great life. I appreciate all my friends, relatives, and appreciate what God has done for us.
I married Beth Overstreet in 1939, August the 15th. And we have 4 children, Jerry, David, Warren, and Rosemary. They all married except Rosemary. She had been married, but she had no children. And David has 3, Jerry has 4, and Warren has 2. And they're all still alive and happy, all in school. How many children do you have, Grace?
My name is Grace White, and I have 12 children. And I can tell you their names, but not their age.
That's too many to remember, isn't it, Rose?
And
When did you marry and who?
I married Ollie White in 1930. And my oldest son is Joe. I was trying to think of his age, but I can't do that. And the next son is Jack. And the next one is Charlie. And the next one is James. Then Mary Ann. And Wayne. And Billy. And Linda. And Dolly. I have to stop and think. And Ariel. Dot. Did I say Dolly? Yeah.
Did you get Linda?
I think so. And Bobby and Gracie.
Is
And
that
they're-
all? Are you sure?
That's all.
Well, I think you win the prize, Grace. Definitely, you win the prize.
Yeah, where's my prize?
She's the one that
You didn't have any to
that
sell either, did you?
did
Grace?
just like her mother. She had the same number as her mother, and
Yeah.
that's a
No,
wonderful
Mother had
thing.
10.
Oh, well, she
had
beat her
10.
mother, didn't
Yeah.
she? Good. Okay. Well, after lunch, we're going to be gathering back here by separate families and interview the families. That'll be fun. Okay. Here we are again with Aunt Bernice Nipper and her son Harold, and we're going to spend just a few minutes talking about the family. You have 2 children, right?
Huh?
You have 2 children, Harold and Zeta, right? Uh-huh.
Yeah,
And Zeta lives where? Where does Zeta live?
California.
California. Does she have any children?
Oh, yeah, adopted son.
Adopted son.
Yeah.
What's his name?
But they got him a little baby.
When he was a
He's
baby.
hers.
He's just like theirs, isn't he?
Yeah, I'll say.
What's his name?
They just worship him. Jody.
Jody. Oh, boy.
You see, it's Joe. His name is Joe, you know.
Her husband was Joe, and they called him
They
Jody.
named him Jody.
Good.
And he's a fine boy.
Now, Harold, you want to tell us about your daughter? And
Yeah, she lives in Modesto, California, and she has 3.
3 children.
2 girls and a boy.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I'm proud of them.
Now, what's her name and the boy and the children's name?
Sandra Lee is my daughter's name. Yeah, and Worthington is her last name.
Worthington.
Her married name. Jennifer is the oldest girl. She's about 12 now, and they have 1, 10. The second girl, and the little boy. He's 5.
I see.
Yeah.
What do they do in California?
Well, she's a beauty operator, and he works at a box factory where they make boxes for these fruit,
Oh, yeah.
all that fruit out there.
Where in California?
Modesto.
Modesto.
Uh-huh.
You used to live out there, didn't
Yeah.
you? Yeah.
Lived there quite a while.
I see.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Is that about it? Okay. Okay. Now we have Annie Nipper and her sons, Doyle and James Harmon, Carl Dean. So we're going to interview them just for a minute here and find out about a little bit about the boys. We found out about Aunt Annie a while ago. Doyle, you want to tell us who you married and who your children are and whatever else you want to tell us?
Well, I married Viola Kaler, and it's been about 33 years ago, and
Only yesterday.
yeah. And we have 2 children, and Debbie and Gina's married and living in O'Keene.
Good.
Got 4 grandkids.
4 grandchildren.
Yeah. And one of them's grandkids' birthday's today, and we've got to go up there tonight,
Great.
see them.
In O'Keene.
Yeah, in O'Keene.
Okay. You want to give it to James?
Yeah.
He can tell us.
Yes, I married Joanne Fugate 25 years ago. We have 2 sons, Mark and Craig. One married, and Mark's married. And we have a grandchild, Ty, who's a year old.
I married Betty Dugan about 22 years ago, and we have 4 children, Carla, Brian, Greg, and Michelle. And Carla is married to Mark Dame, who's from Stafford, Kansas, and we have no grandchildren yet.
Thank you a lot. Are we going to try to get in the spouses now and the children? You want me to call them in, or? Okay.
You two, well, if you go ahead and introduce your wife and kids, and then we'll give it back to James, let him introduce.
Take it back to you.
You don't have any kids here, though, do you? Okay.
Come on, Brian, get in here. Right here on the floor.
Right. That's it. Debbie, you be over here.
Sit here on Joanne's toes.
Okay, I'd like to start off by making a correction on how long I've been married. It's 23 and a half years ago. I married my wife, Betty, and this is our 3 children that are here. It's Greg on our left, Brian sitting in the floor, and then Michelle, and our oldest daughter, Carla, isn't here today.
It's my wife, Joanne.
And this is,
Yeah. This is Debbie here with us today, and the other one is in O'Keene.
okay. Thanks a lot. Okay. Here we have Georgie Sykes again, and this time with her son and 2 daughters that are here, Geraldine and Clifford, and Frida May. Oh, my mind went blank, Frida May. And so we're going to interview them, or let them tell us a little bit about themselves. We heard all about Aunt Georgie a while ago, and we're going to find out about the kids now. Geraldine, you want to tell us about you and your husband and your children?
Well, I'm Geraldine. I'm George's youngest daughter, and this is my husband, Gene. And I have a son, Jay. He lives in the city, and I have a daughter, Terry Ann. She lives in Norman. And we live in Shawnee. And that's just about all I know to say.
Tell us about where you work. That's interesting.
Oh, I work at the retirement center at the Liberty Baptist Church, and that's where my mother lives. And I certainly enjoy it.
She has an apartment there.
She has an apartment there.
Good.
And there's 10 apartments, and there's 10 ladies that live there. And I think just as well as all of them as they do me.
Well, I bet they have a big time.
It's very interesting.
Good. Clifford, you can tell us about your family?
I'm Clifford Sykes, and I've got 2 sons. One's in Washington State, he and his family, and the other one lives here in Shawnee with his family. And I work for Norton Chevrolet Cadillac, and I'm a service manager out there. I've been there about 10 years now. Worked for Ford for 22 years before I went to Chevrolet. It's hard to convert over from one make to another one, but I made it all right. And Helen works downtown at Shoeland. She's working today. And that's about all, I guess.
Okay, you want to pass it on to Frida May?
Frida May don't know very much. I'm Frida Miller. This is my husband, Edwin. We have 3 daughters. 2 live in Pryor, and 1 lives in Broken Arrow. And
All their names.
Linda Ball, Marilyn Headspath, and Gail Wadley. And we have 7 grandchildren. One of them graduated from high school this year. And my husband works he's terminal manager for Ellsworth Motor Freight Lines. And I'm not working right now. I guess that's about all of it.
Okay, I don't believe we got Geraldine's husband introduced, did we, a while ago? Did we?
I think I did. Yeah.
Oh, did we?
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, I
guess
did.
She said enough. Well, I guess we've said it all then, I guess. Okay. Well, here we are, the Hames family, and I know a little bit more about this bunch than the others. This is Family Feud, I think, but this is the Hames family bunch, and we've met Ruby a while ago, and now we're going to meet the kids. And I'm one of the kids, the baby, LH, and my wife Doris. We have 2 boys, Paul and Mark, and a daughter, Meredith. And you want to say anything in your defense, Doris?
You're doing fine.
Oh, okay. We'll pass it on to Eva Lee to find out about her family. Oh, yeah. Grandpa, you want to say anything in the...
Tell them who you are.
Hello to everybody. This is L.H. Hames Sr. Come up and see me sometime.
Where?
Tell them where you live.
Well, he lives in Tulsa with all the rest of us.
Okay.
Well, I'm Eve Curry, and I have 2 sons, one in Tulsa and one in Los Angeles. They couldn't be here today, but
Tell us what they're doing.
I really enjoy being here. David is a freelance writer in Los Angeles. He's married and gets to come home occasionally. Steve is working in Tulsa and is trying to get out on his own now. He's been home from college for a while, trying to get himself together. He's been ill for a while. And they're doing pretty good now.
How about David and Judy going to be home?
Middle of June.
Mm-hmm. Good.
Maybe I should say that we don't live in Tulsa anymore. We live in McKinney, Texas, and I'll issue the same invitation. Come see us anytime.
And tell them where your kids live.
Okay. Our oldest son, Mark, lives in Plano, Texas, where he's a chemistry teacher. And our daughter teaches school and lives in Tulsa. And her husband just graduated from law school this spring. And our youngest, Paul, is a student at Texas A&M. Thank you. You didn't say everything well.
Now, if you forgot, I forgot what I was going to say. I just love every one of my family, my grandchildren just as dear as my very own. I love them all.
That's good.
Thank you.
This time we have the family that belongs to Aunt Emma Martin. And Aunt Emma passed away when? 1954. And she had Eula.
January 44.
44. It's further away than 1944. This is her daughter Eula and her son Elmer over there. And she had another son, Pete, who had to leave. And just the 3, right? Right. Okay. And we're going to hand the mic over to Eula and to Pete so they can tell us about their families.
There was 3 children, Elmer, me, and Pete. And our father was Ike, and our mother was Emma. And we had a real happy, Tabor, and we had a real happy life together.
Now, how about you? You married...
I married Tom Gaskell, and...
You mean me?
Yeah, you. Children? How about children?
Our children?
Yeah, tell about
We have 2 children, Robert and Janetta. Let's see, Robert, I don't know how old he is. He's way up there. Janetta a little younger.
46.
They have 2 children each.
I see. Good. Okay, you want to tell us who you are now?
Okay, I am Elmer and Hazel's daughter, and we live in Cromwell, Oklahoma. And we have 3 boys, and my husband's a teacher and a coach over there, and we have the Cromwell Malt Shop there.
Your name?
And my name is Janita.
Janita.
Moneypenny is the last name. It used to be Tabor.
Okay.
I am Elmer's wife, Hazel. I was a Revis. We have a son that lives in Ponca City, unable to attend today. They have 2 boys. We weren't fortunate enough to have a granddaughter.
Your son's name?
Ernie is our son.
Ernest. Here, Mary. I'll give it to you.
He's about to drown. I am Pete's oldest girl, LaVon, and he had to leave early today. They're all at the lake. There's another girl, Verna, and then the youngest one is Lana. Lana lives in Prague, and Verna and I both live close to the community there where we were raised at, close to the folks.
Where's that at?
Just east of Shawnee.
Did that get everybody?
Mm-hmm.
Now we have Dalmas and Zatha Martin and their sons David and Warren. And Jerry was not able to be here today, but we're glad that that the others were, because they brought all these beautiful little children down in front. We're going to find out a little bit about these kids, so I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, I'm Warren Martin. This is my wife, Danone, my daughter, Shanna, and my son, Jace.
And where do you live?
Excuse me. We live in Manhattan, Kansas.
And you do what?
I work for Carlton Heating and Air Conditioning.
Good.
I've worked there for going on 11 years now.
Okay, and hand it to your mother, Zatha.
Okay.
And he married the boss's daughter.
Oh, that helps.
And I'm Zatha Martin. I'm from Salina, Kansas, and I'm a waitress at the Holiday Inn.
Really?
Uh-huh. Put in 73 hours last week. I think that's pretty good for an old lady my age.
Better slack up a little.
Yeah.
And I'm Dallas Martin, father of these boys and all these grandchildren here.
You work
I
at Holiday Inn.
work at Holiday Inn part-time and do a little odd jobs around for different people. I guess that's about all.
Okay.
I'm Dave Martin, and this is my wife, Tony. And these are our three children. The oldest, Tony Martin, Dee Dee, and Jason. And we live in Derby, Kansas, which is right outside of Wichita. And I'm a sales rep for Peshota Food Distributors. It's a wholesale food distributor. You want to say anything?
Say hi.
Say hi. Say you got to be here.
Maybe she's not.
No, I'm real happy to be here, and I work for State Farm Fire and Casualty and have for 10 years.
Oh, okay.
And stopped in to see your agent here, and he wasn't at work. So.
Tell us about Jerry, since he's not here.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll let Mom.
Well, Jerry lives at Grinnell, Kansas, and they're moving to Colby next month. He teaches history and is cross-country coach, and he's recruiting now for Colby, Kansas, and they're going to move down there next week. And his wife teaches nursing at Junior Colby College, and he's going to be employed by Junior Colby College starting the next year.
Great.
Oh yeah, and then we have a daughter, Rosemary. She graduated from K-State last week. She took her internship at Menninger's in Topeka. And, but she also works for the radio station there, WIBW, and she thinks after she's got her diploma, she'll go into radio instead of mental institutions.
She took holoculture therapy.
Mm-hmm.
What is that? Holoculture?
Horticulture.
Plants.
Horticulture.
She works in the greenhouse with the mental patients, you know.
Well, that's
supposed to be good
fascinating.
for you, for 'em, you know.
Great.
Uh-huh.
Well,
She likes it.
thank you very much.
Uh-huh.
This is the Charlie Martin family, at least part of it, and so I'll turn it over to Charlie and let him tell us a little bit about the part that's not here first, and then we'll hand it down to Melvin and introduce Irene also. She wasn't in here a while ago.
Well, our oldest son didn't make it today. Charles and his family had other plans, and so Melvin and Brenda are here, and we've enjoyed this celebration so much. My oldest sister, Bernice's 90th birthday. And this is my wife, Irene. She and I have been married a little over 3 years. And here's my youngest son, Melvin, and his family, Brenda and Rhonda.
Thank you, Dad. I'd like to introduce my daughter, Rhonda, who will be in the 10th grade next year. She's almost 15 years old. And this is my wife, Brenda, here. And I am in the Tulsa public school system. I have been a teacher coordinator for about the last 15 years in the Tulsa system. And my older brother, Charles, and his family are not here today. He's got 2 kids, the daughter, Pam, about 15 or 16. And then he's got a son, that's Chris, that is 14. And they're out of state this weekend, couldn't make it. But this is the rest of the Martin family right here.
And I guess that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. This handsome family belongs to Grace White, sitting over there in the middle, and she did a good job a while ago telling us all about all of her family and all of her children. And here are some of them on this back row. And I'm not going to attempt to try to identify them. I'm going to pass this mic around and let them tell a little bit about themselves, and maybe if they're married, who they married to, and maybe if any of these children of theirs, well, they can tell about it. Mary Ann?
I'm Mary Ann. This is my husband, Guy McCullough. And this is my oldest son, Keith, and youngest son, Kenneth. And we live at Derricks, Arkansas. And we own and operate a motel, and my husband's postmaster at Derricks.
Just about run the town over there.
Well, not quite.
Okay, is that about it?
We let Jamie do that.
Jamie runs the town. Okay, you want to pass it on there?
My name is Gracie Smith, and I live in Horatio, Arkansas.
Where?
Horatio.
Horatio. What do you do at Horatio?
I worked for Tailpaint.
Tailpaint. Okay.
Here.
Uh-oh. My name is Bobby Lovell, and I'm married to Dale Lovell, and I live in Horatio, and I'm just a housewife.
Next.
Yeah.
My name is Rufus White. I think everybody knows about RLs. Somebody told me a while ago that the reason they named me RL is because Mama ran out of names and started with initials. I'm married. My wife is presently on vacationing in Florida with her mother and some friends. And I work at the Youth Service Center, Division of Youth Service Center of Arkansas in Pine Bluff, Arkansas.
She teaches.
She teaches at Whitehall Elementary.
I'm James White, my wife LaVon here beside me, and we live in Derricks, Arkansas, and have a shoe store there. LaVon operates the shoe store, and I work for the city of Derricks, a gas, water, and sewer superintendent. This is Brian, our oldest son. He'll be a senior in high school next year, and Carl on my left, he'll be a junior next year. And Carla, she'll be in the 6th grade next year.
Great. Okay, one more thing. Keith graduated this year, just this month. Good. Well, and why don't we have the names of the other 6? Are there 6 more? 7 more? Mary Ann, could you name them?
Well, the oldest one is Joe, and he lives in Texarkana, and Jack's in Sykeston, Missouri, and Charlie is there in Derricks, but he wasn't able to come. And Billy is in Canton, Texas, Fairfield, Texas now. And Linda and Dolly are at Horatio.
Well, there are 2 more in Horatio.
And R.W. is in Derricks, and he wasn't able to come.
I see. Well, thank you all very much.
How many grandkids are there all together?
Oh.
That's a good question.
That's a good question.
Nobody's ever counted them.
Still 26.
It's 26, last count. And 11
27.
Was it 11
There's
great
27.
11 great-grandchildren.
Is it 11?
There's 26, didn't it? 27 and 11.
That's wonderful. 27 grandchildren and
Boy,
11
Grandma,
great-grandchildren.
You sure started a mess when you started this.
You started something, Grace. That's great.
Okay, this is May 24th, 1981, and we're the home of Dealey McBride, and we're going to discuss the McBride family history a little bit, and I'm going to let Ruby start off explaining the McBride family.
Okay, to start with, and we're going back to about 1892 when my grandfather's family, his wife, R.H. McBride, and his wife, and they had 8 children. Now, some of them were born later, in later years after they came to Oklahoma. My father was the 3rd child, and he was about 3 years old, and they came in a covered wagon from Havana, Arkansas, just after the homestead were staked for, where the government gave them to people if they would come in and claim it as their home. And this place, which is located on number 9 highway, 7 miles west of Tecumseh and a mile south and back east about a half a mile. And they built a log cabin and lived in that for a short time until they could build a house, cut down trees and lumber and build their home. And Grandma McBride passed away when my father was about 14 years old. And Grandpa and the children lived there for several years later. And they had 8 children. Tom Pete was the oldest, and Ada Ray, the daughter, was the oldest. And Tom Pete and W.L., which was my father, and Everett and Gibb and Ida White, Emma Tucker, and Elsie McBride. The 8 children was 3, Ida White, Emma Tucker, and Elsie McBride living at the present time. Then my mother's family was Mr. and Mrs. J.L. Neighbors, and they moved here a few years later, I would say from 4 or 5 years later than the McBride family, and also lived on number 9 highway, about 6 miles west of Tecumseh. And her family consisted of a brother Cassie, and then her name was Dora, Neighbors, and Gracie and Lacey, which were twins. And they are all deceased at the present time. And then our family was Carrie, and she married Charlie Martin, and Dealey, and she is single, lives here in Tecumseh, and Reba Little in California, and then me. And see, my name's Ruby Dixon, and I have one son, David, and my daughter-in-law and grandson, Michael. And so let's let Reba tell you about her family now, or what she wants to say.
Well, I have 4 children. Elizabeth James, and she's married and has 4 children, and 2 of those are married. And LaFern Albert, and they live in L.A. So they have 2 children. And Arnold, he lives in California with me, and he has 3 children. And then Patricia, the youngest, she lives in Arizona with 3 children. What are you going to tell them?
You didn't talk like I did.
I'm Dealey. My name's still McBride. I've never changed my name. I live at 110 South 12th, Tecumseh. I worked for the Chinese garment factory for 34 years and retired a few years ago. Since that, I attend churches, First Baptist Church in Tecumseh, and do as I please most of the time.
Let me ask you, where did you all grow up at? Around?
Oh, I was going to tell you that. All of the children were born on the south section of the place where Grandpa homesteaded, the north part of the section. And then my dad had 80 acres, the south part of 2492 is a section number on 102 highway south of number 9. And all children were born there, all 4 children. And when I was less than a year old, we moved to Earlsboro, lived there about 9 months, and then moved east of Shawnee, 8 miles east and a mile and a half north, and lived there until about 18 years. About 18 years. And Reba and Carrie married at the time we were there, and Carrie moved to Prague when she married, and then to Tulsa. And Reba lived around Shawnee for a while, and then moved to Florida, and she traveled from coast to coast, didn't we? And I married J.C. Dixon, then later, after we moved back to Tecumseh. When we left east of Shawnee, we moved back to Tecumseh, and I married J.C. Dixon, and have never lived out of Pottawatomie County. Okay?
Did you know your grandparents, and do you know anything about their parents?
I don't.
Well, my grandpa McBride, his wife, my grandmother McBride, she passed away in 1905, and he raised the 8 children. And then also my mother's family, they lost their father when in about the same year, about 1905.
Okay, what was their name?
Neighbors.
Neighbors. Yeah, I told you.
Okay. Okay, wasn't there a Davis someplace? Didn't you have a picture one time you showed me of a Grandpa Davis?
Yes, that was my
mother's grandfather's name was Davis.
And they were from Arkansas?
They were from
Tennessee.
Tennessee.
My mother,
Cleveland
my mother and her folks was from Tennessee.
Okay, and then your father was from Arkansas. Was his folks from Arkansas, do you know, or?
I just don't know about that.
Okay. And then he had 8 brothers and sisters?
7.
7 brothers and
8
sisters.
with him.
8 altogether. Okay. Anything else you'd like to tell these people? Okay, great, thank you.
Okay, talk.
This is the site where the house was sitting when we lived out here, and all 4 of us girls were born right out here in this place.
It's a 3-room house.
A 3-room house. We first lived in a 2-room house, and then we moved up into a 3-room house. We moved away when?
I was 6 years old. I was about 6 years old when we moved here.
Did you go to school here?
About half a year.
Where?
We went to school.
Highland School.
At Highland School. And Carrie went to Highland School. I know I've heard her talk about, well, and Dealey went to Highland School. I went to Canadian School east of Shawnee.
You didn't go to Earlsboro? When we moved to Earlsboro, I went down there.
No.
There isn't any farming done out here now. It's just cattle raised here on this grass. But we used to raise cotton, corn.
Had an orchard. I remember apple orchard.
Had
There's
a
spring
real
down
good
in
peach orchard.
Creek. There's a big. There was a real pretty spring down in the creek at that time. It's stopped up now.
We sold the surplus, but we still have the mineral rights, and they're trying to make an oil well here. We hope to get a little out of it.
Now, whereabouts are we? Whereabouts are we?
We're 6 miles west of Tecumseh and 2 miles south and back about.
We're now located on the 80 acres on the south side of Section 2492, and Oil Finders Tulsa and Company, Oil Finders Exploration Company of Tulsa, drilled a well, and they're waiting now for a pump to be put in to the oil tanks you can see in the slush pit where they drilled. This is the property where W.L. and Dora McBride, our mother and father, lived. And my dad had 40 acres of royalty here, and my grandfather the other 40. So since he is deceased, each of the 8 children got 5 acres of the royalty. So it is all in McBride kinfolks. There's no one else has any mineral deeds here but McBride ancestors. My father had 45 acres, which is divided between Dealey, Reba, and I, and Carrie's husband and 2 sons, Charles and Melvin. So we're waiting now to see what the production will be when it gets on pump.
This is Oil Finders.
Tell them the name of the well.
Well,
This is Dealey McBride, number 1.
I don't claim it to be mine, and I'm the only one that the other McBrides that has the McBride name yet, and they put it in Dealey McBride, number 1. And it is estimated that it might produce around 50 barrels a day, but we won't know for sure until they put the pump in and run it for a few days.
I think that's a separator to separate the oil and gas and what have you in that.
Melvin's taking pictures.
I wanted you to see what they had out here. Oh, she thinks that's... Of course, it might be. It could be. Couldn't it?
Sure could.
Look at her.
Ruby, you and Reba get out there with her.
Taking the picture?
Amazing all that is. Oh, down there yet. They're getting ready to do something with all the crap in it.
That's what I wondered, you know, if they're not getting ready to do something. I don't see that they go to all this expense if they didn't try.
They wouldn't put all that up out there if they didn't have to.
Melvin, do you know anything about it? Do they have what they call a separator?
I don't know.
I've heard somebody. They even got a fence around it and the gate to it. So nice to get up on that ladder, but I don't know.
No, they're not. She better not have to. Go up on that ladder? What? She wants to go up on that ladder. Yeah, you can go. Are you going? Well, I knew about where the spring was. Well, that's why I thought you know.
Now I may not get a check for walking in here.
It's as they have been all the time.
I might not get a check for walking in here.
What are you going to do with her when she gets her check? Her check. Lily's not going to get a check for walking in there.
This is Brown Cemetery. It's about 8 miles west of Tecumseh on number 9 highway. And our grandparents, neighbors and McBrides are buried here. And also uncles, Uncle Johnny and Aunt Nellie O'Neill. And Gib McBride, uncle. And Ada Ray. And Roy Hawkins' cousin's husband. A lot of distant relatives are buried here. There's Hewlin.
This is Grandpa and Grandma McBride, R.H. McBride, father of my father. And they had 8 children. And she passed away in 1905, and he passed away in 1937. And then Gib McBride, one of the boys, is buried right here at the left. He was passed away in 1965, and his wife Laura McBride is still living in Tecumseh.
Here to our left is the graves of Grandma and Grandpa Neighbors. Grandpa Neighbors, the one right under the cedar tree, is he died in 1904 and Grandma in 1926. And to the other side of the cedar tree, on the other under, is Uncle Lacy Neighbors, which Mother's youngest brother, who passed away when he was young. He has two children, and the cedar tree, my mother set out and my daddy started trimming. So we have tried to keep it trimmed and as well as we can and keep it, because Mother did set it at her folks' graves.